Morning, everyone. Here we are again at our second annual Once Upon a Readathon. Welcome, everybody. I want to take a minute just to, our Readathon is really a fundraiser. It's an effort to fund our mission. And I wanted to take a minute to thank all of the individuals who have already signed up and created pages on our website, on our fundraising platform to help us raise money to fund our mission. I want to especially recognize some of our young supporters. We have a lot of younger high school, college kids that have signed up, especially our leaders. We have Team Haley, who is our top individual, and her team is the top for the younger supporters and participants. We have Long Beach High School has a page. So if you're from Long Beach or want to support them, you can go there. The Port Page Turners from Port Washington and the Daily Bookworms. So and Syosset High School also has a page. So I want to thank them for joining us and investing in their peers from other communities that they want to wrap their arms around and help them get books in their hands. If it's not too late, so if you want to participate, you can create a page or join the readings, whatever. There's a lot of ways that you can get involved. So for more information, we're going to post the link to the fundraising platform and to the events calendar in the chat. So without any further ado, I'm super excited. This is your first time being with us. Gordon Korman is with us today. Gordon is the author of 90-something books for kids and teens, including 3 titles in the #1 New York Times bestselling 39 Clues series and 4 ALA best books for young adults. His books have sold over 16 million copies and have been translated in 25 languages. Welcome, Gordon. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I was super excited because last year you and your wife generously donated boxes of books to us, which I wish that you could have been in our warehouse because our reading specialist volunteers were going through them like they found gold. And they just loved separating them and getting them ready to go out to the schools. So that was super generous. And I just want to thank you for your support in that manner, first of all.
I was thrilled to be a part of it. It was a lot of packing stuff up in the attic. I think there were 27 boxes in total, but I'm thrilled to have been able to support such an awesome organization.
And they were in different languages, which was amazing for us because we were able to share your book in different languages, which was awesome for the people that we serve, because sometimes we don't get them, and that opportunity to give it to them in the language in which they naturally speak. So that was a really good thing for us.
Yeah, that's incredible too. I was absolutely, I'm not sure if our viewers know this, but I actually got started writing when I was really, really young. My first book was my 7th grade English assignment. So to see your 7th grade story in, Norwegian or Chinese or Dutch or something is a really, really cool feeling. So to know that people are finding use for those books right here in Long Island is amazing.
Yes, and I did want to talk to you and then I want to let you read, because I found it's so interesting, your story, if you want to because you touched on it already, of how you're never too young to find your passion, to find what you're good at, or hone your craft. So if you wanted to just tell that quick story before you start reading to our readers, because some of them are probably the age you were when you wrote your first story.
Yeah, sure. So my first book, obviously a long time ago, because I am not a 7th grader or anything near a middle school student. But in my middle school, the track coach had to teach English, and that was almost like a scheduling mix-up. So we were one English teacher short, but the way our schedule worked, the only adult who was available to cover our class was this coach. So nice guy, good teacher, but he had never taught English, language arts in his life. So when it came to creative writing, he just sort of didn't know what to tell us to do. And he drew a blank and he stood there saying, okay, work on whatever you want for the rest of the year. It was February, right? So from February to June, we had a class period every day in my middle school, about 45 minutes to write one thing. And at first, I just started writing it, in class because, what choice did we have? That's what we're doing. I got into it. My story kind of, took off. I started bringing it home, working on it at night. I had, somewhere between 4 and 5 months. And that's how I wrote my first book, which was called This Can't Be Happening at MacDonald Hall. I think I have a copy here.
And I love,
yeah, there it is.
yes.
It's not the thickest book in the world, as you can see, but it's been out for more than 40 years now. It's been translated into French, Swedish, Danish, Norwegian, Chinese, Japanese, Portuguese, Italian,
Wow.
Korean, Dutch,
Wow.
and Greek. So it's been a really, really fun ride. Next time you're sitting in class, and I mean, I could tell you when our teacher came out and just sort of said, we're all going to write these gigantic stories. We were just kind of like, no, what's going on? And it turned out to be, for me, a life-changing thing. I mean, I turned 57 last fall, and here I am still writing the same kind of stuff that I wrote when I was sitting there in 7th grade.
That's an amazing story. I'm thinking most kids are like, all right, hall pass. We have a teacher that's saying, do what you want to do. But you took that and you turned it because you know what? It's important. Reading is important. Being able to write appropriately is important. And this took you into a career for the students that we're talking to. Reading and writing.
So I'm an only child, and growing up, like I got bored a lot because unless I had a friend over, I was kind of it as far as kids around. And one of the ways I kept myself entertained was just sort of being creative, like making stuff up, right? What's my job today? I make stuff up for a living. So it's just very, very lucky for me that I have a job that's so perfectly kind of suited to what my skill set is, right? I mean, I've been making stuff up since I was a 7th grader and before.
That's great. And today you're going to be reading Unplugged, which we'll have lots of questions for you afterwards, because I know some of the people in the office had questions about it, because it's very timely about technology and what we're all going through. So I'm going to actually mute myself, and I'm going to turn my video off. I will pop back in, and then I'll ask you questions when you're done reading.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Of course. So this is Unplugged. It is my 97th book. So it's been, we're a pretty long way from the 7th grade English project. And let me tell you a little bit about how I got the idea. So there is a little bit of real life to it. My editor, who works at the publishing company, goes on an annual wellness retreat. And they go to this wellness center. It's kind of in the middle of the woods, very isolated. She calls it the healthiest place on earth. And it's gotta be, right? Like all the food is health food, exercise 24/7, kind of I call them weird spa treatments, like having your whole body packed in hot mud, like that kind of thing. But the other thing about it, it is unplugged, like no technology, no phones, no TVs, no iPads. Like if it has a screen, it's out. And so she's telling me about how much she loves it. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, please don't make me go to a place like that. Like if you sent me to the Oasis of mind and body wellness, I'd hate it. But I kept thinking, what if a bunch of kids got sent there? Particularly the unplugged part would be a little bit kind of hard for them to handle. I'm very much a what if writer, right? If you think of any story, there's always kind of a what if baked into it, right? What if the ungifted kid got sent to the gifted school by mistake? Or what if kids had to steal back $1 million baseball card they've been swindled out of? But even true stories that nobody ever made up, they still kind of work as what ifs, right? What if the world's largest ocean liner got hit an iceberg and sank on its maiden voyage? Sound familiar? I mean, nobody made up the Titanic. It's a true story. It totally works as a what if. So in your own writing, if you ever get writer's block, just ask yourself, what are the what ifs of my story? And the what if for Unplugged was just, what if kids got sent to the oasis of mind and body wellness, this super healthy, super crunchy retreat where on top of everything else, it's completely unplugged and there's no technology. And confession time, like I'm not a cruel person, but sometimes as a writer, you have to be a little bit cruel. And I thought to myself, who would be the worst kid in the world to send to a wellness oasis? I kept thinking about Silicon Valley in California, like where all the big technology companies come from. Picture this. What if your dad invented Google, or like some company that's the equivalent of Google? So you're practically tech royalty, a prince or princess of the technology revolution, and you get sent to this place where you can't even have a phone or look at a screen. And that's how I created Jet Baranoff, the main character. His father is the founder of Fuego, the largest tech company in the world. Fuego is bigger than Facebook, Apple, and Google combined, and he gets sent to the oasis of mind and body wellness. What was really fascinating for me writing the book, it's at first it's very easy to be jealous of a kid like Jet. Like let's face it, he's a pretty rich kid. Like his father is a tech billionaire, right? But when you really think about him, he's a pretty lonely guy, right? Only child. His parents have no time for him. He was raised by, nannies when he was little, and, tutors and Fuego employees trying to impress the boss. So when he shows up at the Oasis, he hates it. But when you also think about it, like this summer at the wellness retreat is probably the best chance this kid is ever going to have to live a normal life with normal friends. Can he do it? Well, that was also interesting because, how is Jet going to react to the Oasis? But also, how are the other kids at the Oasis going to react to having this billionaire's son in their midst? And the scene that I'm going to read from Unplugged is Jet's first day pedal boating on their lake. And it's told by another kid there, Tyrell. Janelle, the water sports pathfinder, announces we're going to be taking out the pedal boats today. The Oasis is located on the Saline River, right at the inlet lake that we use for boating and kayaking. Am I crazy to think that Jet Baranoff and I could be friends? We're both kind of misfits here. Neither of us loves the Oasis. Okay, him less than me, but that might be because I'm way more easy at letting myself be pushed around. Whatever the reason, Jet has a 0% chance of ever getting picked to be somebody's partner for pedal boats. And that's going to make him hate it here even more than he does now. So I step forward. I'll go with Jet. All right, Janelle beams. You and Jet and Tyrell. Jet's half-closed eyes open, maybe an extra millimeter, but that's his only reaction. Janelle rattles off the rules, which the rest of us have heard before. Bathing suits only, keep hands and feet inside the boat, pedal in unison, and most important, don't get too close to the river where the current can catch you. Not unless you speak Creole, she concludes. The Saline River will take you all the way down to Louisiana. Any questions? Jet raises his hand. Do we have to do it? Can it, smart guy, Matt puts in wearily. Yeah, you have to do it. And the next thing you know, I'm climbing into the boat with Vladimir Baranoff's son. My family are big Fuego fans, I tell him as we pedal out onto the lake. We use Byte Bolt on all our computers and do most of our shopping through Fuego Prime. Yeah, he replies in a bored tone. I'll be sure to tell Vlad. Oh, wait, no phone. Sorry. I mean, he obviously doesn't have to know about every customer, I add hastily. Fuego has, 2 billion users? 2.5, Jet corrects me in a bitter tone. And my dad cares about every single one of them, more than he cares about his own son. I'm sure that's not true. Jet shoots me a sideways glance. Did he send any of them to this hippy-dippy wellness podunk? Well, I'm sure he had his reasons. I risk a glance at his bland features. Come to think of it, why did your dad send you here? Because Pluto was already booked. I catch a glimpse of Grace. She's in the blue boat with Stuart, and she's making an O motion with her finger, which I realize that she's trying to tell me we're going in circles. A quick check reveals that the reason is because I'm pedaling and Jet isn't. Hey, you have to pedal too, I urge. Why? I don't want to go anywhere. Because if you don't, there's a scraping sound as our boat runs aground in the reeds. Jet sits up and looks around. When he sees Matt scowling at us, he breaks into a happy smile. Back up, Einstein, Matt hollers from the opposite shore. Violating the rules, I reach my foot out of the boat and jam it into the silty bottom in an attempt to pry us loose. The mud is really soft and I can't get any leverage. Jet isn't helping. For the first time since I laid eyes on him, he actually seems to be enjoying himself. Lazily, he picks a bulrush out of the water and examines it with interest. I wonder how these things would fly. He scrambles up, and with the boat rocking beneath him, he rears back and launches the rush like a spear. It soars high in the air and lands with a small splash near the cluster of boats pedaling around. Wow, I can't help commenting. I didn't think it would go so far. I know, right? Jet's impressed. The fat part gives it weight, and the stalk adds stability. He pulls out another rush and cocks his arm back like a pitcher. Watch this one. Careful you don't hit anybody, I put in. Jet's second throw is much harder, the action of his body jarring our boat free from the mud and sending us back out into open water. The projectile sails halfway across the lake and, as if aimed by an evil spirit, comes down into the lead boat. Yow! Comes a deep-throated cry of outrage. Jet is still on his feet, arms spread wide in triumph, when Brandon peers over to investigate the source of the missile that clobbered him. What did you do that for? I grab Jet's arm and pull him back down into the seat. Ah, geez, you just nailed the biggest, meanest kid in the whole place. Jet is serene. Be whole, man. He's not nearly so calm a few seconds later when Brandon and his partner, Armando, pedal out of the group, kicking up a pretty good spray. There's no question that they're coming straight for us. Jet finds his pedals at last, and we're headed at them in a collision course. You don't want to mess with Brendan, I plead. His father used to play for the 49ers. My dad used to own the 49ers, Jet shoots back. The transformation in Jet, when he isn't half asleep, is amazing. His eyes are wide and bright blue. His cheeks flame. The grin is practically ear to ear, revealing a mouthful of gleaming white teeth. Compare that to Brandon, whose expression is like a line of thunderheads as he closes in on us. I catch a fleeting glimpse of Grace in the blue boat. She was annoyed at me a few minutes ago, but now she's all sympathy. Or maybe she's just distracted because she's wondering what to wear to my funeral. I want to talk to you, rich boy, Brandon roars. We're seconds away from a painful head-on collision when Jet reaches over and heaves the tiller as far as it will go in the opposite direction. Our boat pivots suddenly and swerves out of the path of the oncoming Brandon and Armando. They miss us completely. Brandon lunges for Jet and belly flops into the water. We're dead, I predict mournfully as we pedal away. We're so dead. Try a little meditation, Jet advises. By the time the dripping Brandon climbs back into his boat, we've got a solid head start and we're moving even faster than before. The other kids and the people on shore are yelling at us. What are they saying? Turn back! Janelle's frantic voice rises above the others. It hits me. We're on the far side of the lake, heading out into the water. That's when we're moving so fast. The current is taking us. This crazy Californian is going to get himself killed, and me with him. I'm not sure exactly when we stop pedaling. It doesn't matter, because at this point, the river is in charge. We're picked up by the downstream flow, which directs us onto a huge slanted rock. The slope acts like a ramp, and we're catapulted onto the far riverbank and deposited into a giant scratchy bramble bush. There we hang, imprisoned by the branches, unable to move. You okay? I ask Jet when the thumping of my heart slows down enough for speech. He just laughs. I guess that means yes. And anyway, that's a little bit of Jet's, one of his early interactions with the other kids at the Oasis. You know, when I wrote the book, I sort of thought the fun story to tell was what is it like to be sort of Silicon Valley's most notorious spoiled brat. But when I really got into writing the book, the part that truly intrigued me was how is this Silicon Valley kind of royalty going to interact with normal kids from normal families in this place that's super healthy and there's no technology.
It has so much meat to it, the book, I think, because there's so many, like what you were saying is where he comes from and the type of family, but also technology and the connection to technology and his ability to morph into somebody that he doesn't know who he is because he's come from royalty. So it's really great. And I think that it will be, all kids should be reading this because it's very timely as well.
Thanks so much.
I love it. So let me just see, I'm looking for questions right here. Hold on one second. I do know that one question was, have you ever had your kids unplug?
We've got some tech kids in our house. I mean, my kids are a little bit older, right? So my oldest son is 22. I have a daughter who's 19. And my youngest son is in high school. He's a sophomore right now. So we have two college kids and a high school kid. They are big tech kids, right? Particularly my oldest, who is, I always called him a video game addicted couch potato. So, we're always like, worrying about our internet speed and because gaming sort of requires more connection than regular streaming and stuff like that. So we have never done this is going to be our no tech week or our no tech couple of days or something like that, because for me, I know that we all, including adults, get sort of too hooked on the technology. But the technology is also wonderful for research, and particularly during the pandemic. I mean, what would kids do without being able to use the internet to get into school, to their classes? So I try to balance that, but I definitely think that as a parent, my own, I've probably been a little bit too accepting of my own kids and their dependence on their phones and their devices.
I know it's so it's interruptive and invasive at times because it stops.
But I also think watching my kids it's sort of fascinating, because I remember watching the Super Bowl with one of my sons a few years back, and it was like we're watching the game on a screen, right? The TV. Mm-hmm. He's got his computer set up on the coffee table, and it's running the Twitter feed for hashtag Super Bowl whatever. And at the same time, he's got his phone in his hand, and he's sort of following his own friends and what they're messaging and tweeting about the game. So I don't think my brain is wired that way, to kind of follow three screens at the same time. So yeah. I sort of think that it freaks me out to see my kids so tech dependent, but I'm also kind of admiring of how they can just think in a different way than I do.
It's coming at them from so many different angles that at a certain point it really does create almost like a overwhelming effect, I think, and at some point it definitely will catch up to them. Do you think your book ideas, or do you think of your book ideas, or does your editor ask you to write on a specific topic?
Well, sometimes your editors will have suggestions, and then sometimes there will be projects that are kind of partly or fully laid out. Like the big example of that is I was one of the writers. Not sure how many people watching know the 39 Clues series, because it's a little bit old now, but it was a multi-author series that I was a part of, and that was actually none of the authors' idea. It was the editorial people at Scholastic came up with the idea of the 39 Clues, and they hired a number of us to sort of execute their vision. So you are sort of following guidelines. Like I wrote book 2 in the series, and book 1 was written by, you know who Rick Riordan is, right? The author of the Percy Jackson series. So in a lot of ways, like I thought it was a great boost to my own creativity, just because I couldn't have found that starting place myself. I needed Rick Riordan to write a whole book to get me to where I could even start One False Note, which was the second book. And then Peter Larangis, another amazing writer who wrote book 3, he couldn't get to where he started without Rick and me, you know. So it was a really cool project, but it's definitely a lot of moving parts, right? Like picture you're writing a series book, but you didn't write the book before, and you won't be writing the one that comes after.
That is truly unique. That's definitely an interesting one. I have Amy wrote, I loved the book Ungifted and saw that it is in development for a movie. Any updates on the project?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, I think that maybe what something went out on Twitter that was a little bit too, that was sort of like, we're shooting it tomorrow. And I don't think that's going to happen. You know, Amy, the movie business is trickier than the book business. I mean, when I write a book, it's basically like I'm in charge of everything that goes into that book, right? So I have a lot of control over what happens. But when you're making a movie, there's just so many, you know, there's like the producers, the director, the writers, there's all kinds of different people involved. So it's not really up to me whether a movie gets made. It's up to so many other things. So I got my fingers crossed for Ungifted, but right now, I believe that we found out that, like, the recent thing on Twitter, which was like, oh, we're making this tomorrow, it's a done deal. I don't think that turned out to be 100% true. Sorry about that.
And how funny is it that you would find out from Twitter? Like people, like you would know through Twitter whether or not your movie's being made. That's
exactly. Well, that's, we're getting back to the unplugged theme of technology. That's sort of the world we live in today. It's been actually very, very cool because, I got started writing when I was 12, obviously a long time ago. One of the things that was very frustrating back then is it was very, very hard to promote your book. And now we have, authors have their own websites. We have, many of us have videos on YouTube. There's Twitter, there's Facebook, there's Instagram. There are all these ways that you can be personally involved in interacting with your readers and getting people interested in your books. To me, that's the awesome part, because writing is kind of a solitary thing, right? It's just you and your computer. Your editor knows about it, maybe a few other people. But when that book comes out, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people are going to read what you wrote. That relationship you can have with so many readers is, I think, the best part of what I do.
And that's a positive side of technology. I have Carolyn Matthews is asking, how many books have you made? Which I think we might have asked, is it 90?
Well, so Unplugged is number 97. So I actually have one coming out in July, July 20th, linked. This is my next book. So awesome. I've actually written 98. In fact, so, fingers crossed again, but if we keep up the current pace, I will be publishing book 100 before the end of 2022.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, best of luck on Linked. I hope that goes over well. And I think we're almost out of time. Carolyn also said, would you recommend the book? I'm going to say, Carolyn, I can answer for you. You would definitely recommend the book. Well, buy the book.
Yeah, I think someone asked also in the Q&A, is the book out yet? So okay. Unplugged came out in January, so it's still pretty new. But there is, I think, kind of the deal between writers and their readers is just kind of, you keep reading them, I'll keep writing them, because there is nothing quite like the feeling there are kids like you out there reading my stuff, enjoying it, thinking about it, laughing in all the right places, that is the best feeling
Yes.
for not just me, but for any writer.
Kristen Soul wanted to know, are the places in the book real?
Oh, hi, Kristen. So, the Oasis is made up, right? It's sort of based on the wellness center that my editor told me about, but obviously I exaggerated a little bit. Like I made it just a little bit healthier and a little bit crunchier and a little bit like weirder. But that spot in Arkansas is totally real, and the Saline River is one of those rivers that that eventually sort of, there's a lot of splitting off, but if you follow the Saline River, it'll eventually take you all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Which ends up being, I won't spoil anything for you, but it ends up being a significant bit of the story as you go on reading Unplugged.
That's awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for being with us today and for donating all of your books, which was phenomenal. And we hope that you'll come back again next year. You're a Long Islander, and I think you get that we want all kids to have access to books, and that's really our mission, is to make sure that books are accessible. So I wanted to thank you for your time. Right? It's
Yeah,
needed.
Absolutely. And I think that's also important to those classes who are still logged in. We are sort of neighbors, right? I'm a fellow Long Islander. So if you see somebody who looks like me at the mall or the beach or something, you're like, oh, that looks like that author dude. It probably is. It probably is. So thank you so much for logging in today to this session. Thank you for support of Book Fairies. And, thank you for being readers.
Yeah. And I always end with thanking our sponsors, because we wouldn't exist if we didn't have funding. So I want to thank PC Richard, Moral Alarm Security, Investors Bank, Jovia Financial, and Serene and Associates for their support. We wouldn't be able to do what we do or invite amazing authors like you, or distribute the books if we didn't have support from these amazing organizations that believe in our community. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great day, and we'll be in touch. Hopefully we'll see you again next year.
All right. See you next year. Bye,
Thanks.
guys.
Thanks.